Hello, welcome to Drupal Over Easy. My name's Nigel. This tutorial is a follow-on from the previous tutorial where we used Drupal services. So if I click on part 1 here, we get taken back to the previous tutorial. So in this tutorial here, we set up our Drupal service that basically implemented a Drupal image gallery for us to provide photos. These photos can be provided to any application, basically, including device applications. So that's what we're going to do in this tutorial. We're going to be implementing a device application. In this case, it's going to be a Titanium application that runs on an iPad, an iOS device. All this application is going to be doing is just displaying the images that have been set up on our Drupal site, our image field gallery. Okay, so the prerequisites is do part 1 first. That will cover all the modules you need to install, as well as setting up your Drupal service. If you don't have a Drupal service set up, you're not going to be able to have anything for your device application to connect to. Right, the next step here is I'm not going to go into any details about Titanium itself. It's basically just to give a brief overview. It's a mobile development framework written and implemented in JavaScript. We write applications in JavaScript that you can build for either Android or iOS devices, iPads or iPhones. So the mechanism behind it is by implementing applications in Titanium, they only have to be done once, then they can be built and compiled for either Android or iOS. Okay, right, so moving into the code is all this code's been implemented in the app.js for Titanium, and that's the default file you write your JavaScript code in. And I've actually put a copy of the code in here just to be viewed. This code's just for demonstration purposes. It does work for my example, but if people start using it as a reference, trying to do things from it, I won't support it. It's purely there just to show you how we connect to the Drupal service as such. Okay, on the website here, it's not so easy to show all the code here. You can copy and paste it, no problems at all, and it's color-coded in JavaScript. So I'm just going to switch across to my Emacs editor here. And so we've got a copy of the code here. I'm just going to briefly highlight what the code's doing here. So at the top, we're just creating our window. We need a window frame for our application. That's all this does here. And the next thing here is I'm defining a variable called URL, and it's pointing to, if you looked at the previous tutorial, it's pointing to, it's actually pointing to the location here, tut local image services gallery. So I'm actually going to have to change that for this to work. So it's got to point to the images that we just used. So if I just go back, and while I'm there, I better put the correct address, which is tut of the actual website itself, tut01.local. So image, this is our endpoint location. Now we need to put the location of our resource that we set up using the views services module, and so it's called services gallery. Okay, so this is now pointing to the services that we set up on the previous tutorial URL. Next thing we need to do for Titanium is to create our HTTPC client. So we need to create an object based on this function call here. This is going to give us the functionality to make requests to remote servers, You can push things up to remote services. You can do post and puts and gets and a bunch of HTTP requests here. So we need to create this object here. And next thing here is we need to open on the HTTP client itself. We're going to tell it it's going to be a GET request. In other words, we just want to get some data from the URL, which is our Drupal service up here. Okay, and we also need to add a header to just basically tell the Drupal device, which is set up to support JSON communication. We need to we need to set up our header to support JSON data transfers, and this is how you do it in Titanium here. And then we send our request basically. So we're just sending it. It's a GET request to the service location here. And basically within this object here, it's got what's called asynchronous function calls. So asynchronous means that they will happen at another stage without affecting anything else running on your device, in this case the iPad. So what we've got working here is at a later stage, once we get a response from the server, this function here will then be called, and we can basically interrogate the response, such as in this case it was a 200 OK. We can just basically monitor that response to see that we got the data back OK, and then we can read the data and get our address of where our actual images are. So this asynchronous function call will be called later at a later stage. It's asynchronous, so it's just going to happen at a later stage when our application is not going to wait for it. Okay, so first thing here is in the this is a bunch of Titanium code here. We're going to create a variable where we get the response text back. If we jump back here, the response text is, if we jump back to the previous tutorial, here's our response text here, and we've got enough information here to get the actual file names here itself. So here are our actual file names. I did modify these from the previous tutorial. I just moved the spaces in any of the image names because that can just cause unnecessary problems. So this is sort of data that we're going to read back into our device here. So that's going to be read into the response variable here. So there's a bit of debug code here. And then here I'm just setting my image coordinates in Titanium. You've got a thing called image views, which is where you associate your image. And we just give those coordinates of where the first image we want to be put on the display, which is up the top left-hand corner there. Okay, I'm creating some new variables here. These variables are going to hold the location, and they're also going to hold an array of what I'm calling image views. So each image view is going to get assigned its own image view, basically. The variable name is very similar to the function name here. Okay, next thing here is the location of where my actual images are. And so my actual images, when I uploaded them, are saved to this location, and after files is the actual name of my image. So basically what I want to append to the image fields are this address plus the name of the image itself. Okay, what I do get, you would have seen it in the previous output displayed to me, is some big arrays. So this is like this first for loop just filters down through the first layer of the array, and then I've got a next for loop here which is going to actually calculate how many images I've actually got there, and then it's going to sort of traverse between each image. And what I'm going to do here is replace the address that I've been given from Drupal itself and append this address here to it, and then add the image name at the end, and then that gets assigned to the image field. While we're looping through that, I'm going to move each image across and place it in a different position on the display here, which is what this code here is doing. And I think the way I've set the image size is you can have a number up to 3 images on a row, and then we jump down to a new row, so that code's doing that. And then at the end of this loop here, I just add my image view, and it's array. I just add that to the to the window itself, the window that holds the application. And the rest is a bit of debug code here. And then at the very end is I just open the application. So that's basically what's happening there. That's a high level overview. The code's quite straightforward. The main guts of it is Drupal gives us a bunch of arrays with our images in there, so we have to manipulate that data so we can present it in a sort of nice way to our Titanium application. So that's all this does. Save this, and then I'm just going to build this Titanium application from the command line. It's just Titanium build, execute that. Okay, the iPad's now starting up. Application's now starting up. The application now started up. It put a GET request to our Drupal services. In this case, it was the image gallery. And on our application, we've now just displayed the images that have been set up in our views services in our gallery itself. And the sizes of these galleries and placement, all this has been done in the Titanium device application here as such. So that's the tutorial. We're just demonstrating how we can use a device such as an iPad or an Android to connect to a Drupal service, in this case the image gallery itself. Very basic example where we just do a GET request and we get the photos returned, such as we see here. So that completes this series of Drupal services tutorials where we actually do a GET request. I'll probably do some more tutorials where we do a PUT request, where we actually send data up to the Drupal server. I've got an interesting idea for that one. Anyway, so in this tutorial we just learned how to, in these tutorials we learned how to set up a Drupal service and test that Drupal service by using the Firefox HTTP requester tool. And then we actually developed a simple application in the JavaScript using the Titanium framework to just build that running on the iOS emulator. Simulator, yep. And just running on that. So that's, we're sort of proving that the modern day world, we're seeing convergence between handheld devices, mobile phones and such, between the actual web servers themselves. Okay, that's all for this one. Hope you enjoyed it. Keep following Drupal over easy. Now posting on YouTube, so if you like it, stick the thumbs up and subscribe to these tutorials because we're going to have some interesting techie ones coming out. And thank you for your time. Bye for now.